And we are live right now, guys. What's going on, everybody? This is The State is Not God. We got our buddy Adam, Randall, Ryan, and Zach here. This is their first attempt at trying this, so bear with us as we're noobs to this whole hangout aspect. I guess how we want to do it is like, let's start off an introduction about ourselves, a quick synopsis if you choose to. I'm Alex, 29, from New Jersey. I was just telling Randall how I got into libertarianism. I never knew about the term itself. I've always had the mentality that man should never rule man. Let everybody live on their own terms. Community aspect, moral values of doing good versus bad, and just helping each other. It wasn't until a friend of mine introduced me to the Facebook group that I found out about libertarianism as a whole. I feel like it still has its flaws per se, because everybody wants to make everything so complex, in my opinion. They want to try and find the pinpoint to everything, but I'm still open to the idea. And so far, I like the idea and the people behind it and how they think, because obviously great minds do think alike. And I think libertarians have a great way of seeing how life should be lived compared to Democrats and Republicans and whatever parties you could think of on the top of your head. So whoever wants to speak next, go right ahead. I'll be muting my mic now.
I guess I'll go because I'm not muted. So I'm Zach. I left the video on. I guess I don't care. But so I'm 28, married with one kid. I've basically been a libertarian my whole life in theory, but probably not till the 2012 election that I got into more liberty-minded stuff. I'm a linguist by trade. I'm currently living in Arizona. So that's me.
All right, I guess I'll go. I'm Ryan, 27. I guess you could say I've probably been libertarian and anarchist most of my life, but didn't even know it. And if you would have called me an anarchist a few years ago, I probably would have, not been happy about that. But yeah, so I'm still on the journey, and I feel like I've come a long way, mainly because of current political events. But yeah, that's about it. Anybody else?
All right, Randall, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure, I'll go next. I was just trying to figure out how to get my camera back on. But it's cool as long as you guys can hear me.
Yeah, you don't have to put on your camera if you don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know why it turned off, but it's cool. So, hi guys, I'm Randall. I'm 32. I've been a libertarian for about 12 years. Used to be a real big supporter of the Free State Project back in 2004 or so. I tried to walk from from Kentucky to New Hampshire for them. It was a publicity stunt a long time ago. Eventually decided New Hampshire's awesome, but not for me. And now I'm just kind of doing what I can here in Omaha. That's pretty much it.
Right on, right on.
All right, Adam.
Yeah, what's up?
Tell us a little about yourself.
Am I being detained?
Get this man a lawyer.
Give this man a lawyer. Cochran.
I'm a 48-year-old professional bullfighter. I think I'm 32. Yeah, 32.
All right, let's then, Adam. Let's make this easier. What made you go towards more of the libertarian aspect of life, I guess?
I don't know, man. I don't know what's best for everybody, and that's really it for me. I don't think I have any business making any decisions for other people, so I don't think anybody else has any business making decisions for me. So that's just kind of what led me to it.
All right, that sounds good. All right, so what do you guys want to talk about first? You want to I don't know. So many topics to cover. It's been a crazy week for me, at least in New Jersey.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you still alive? Is everything all right over there?
Well, here's the thing. I was actually thinking about it yesterday because I was over at the terminal because I had to take my coworker to go get her ID. And from the looks of how the airport is being ran right now, considering what happened in New Jersey, it's a little too calm that it's kind of eerie. It gave me an eerie feeling. That's why when I had left that comment on the group saying that the airport is too quiet, it's because the way I see everything, the lack of security, you would think that because of something like that, people would be in high alert, especially the airport, because if somebody wants to do damage to something, regardless if there's authority there, they're going to do it. They're going to find a way to do it, whether they're going to run into the terminal themselves and they're going to go into a food court and whoever is there is going to be a casualty no matter how big the number is, in my eyes. So I feel this is why I feel that what's been going on lately is false flags. It's just something to keep us in fear. The idea of how quickly they're able to pinpoint one suspect, and the fact that I'm hearing multiple stories about the suspect that they nabbed in Elizabeth, New Jersey. They think he's linked up to the Chelsea pipe bombing and what happened in Seaside. Now, from what I gathered that day, NBC or CBS New York actually had stated that a gentleman had saw him sleeping in the hallway, so got suspicious and called the cops.
Right.
And I'm hearing another story about how he was actually caught sleeping in his car in Linden, New Jersey. The whole idea for me is you don't shit where you eat. So for somebody that's trying to cause terror, why are they going to stay in the same area and not try and escape any sort of authority figure? And also, apparently, homeless people picked up the bag and started walking with it until they realized that wires were sticking out of it. So then they got scared and dropped the bag and went to the authorities. There's just so many things that have yet to be answered. And the fact that Linden Police Department are now, their heads are so big in ego because they called a terrorist. How is he even deemed a terrorist if he's just a suspect? I don't know. There's just a lot of different things in New Jersey right now. And everybody is just so up their own little thing that it's quiet down within a day. Nobody's talking about it anymore. Now they're talking about these police shootings that's happening in North Carolina. They care more about that than their own state. So I'm just fed up with it, honestly. But everything is good over here. I've learned to pay attention to how the officers that I work with act, because if they're acting calm, that means that everything is fine. But when they start acting a little bit weird, then I start paying attention to what's going on. And right now, it seems like everything is just another day for them. So I'm not worried about it.
Well, at least you're alive. So,
Yeah. But,
and I was going to ask, it sort of reminds me of it sort of reminds me of the Dallas shootings, how they just found that guy and he was automatically guilty and everyone was glad he was dead.
mm-hmm. Well, look at the Orlando shooting and how that was just a huge false flag itself. And what even got me more pissed off about it was the nightclub was able to raise, I think, over $600 million in a day, with no mention of where the money is going to go to. And then you come to find out that hospitals and places were actually going to donate money, or they were going to cover the medical bills. So what is $600 million going to do for a nightclub that promotes drinking and partying? What are they going to do? It just all these different things that no one questions because they just look at the bigger picture of, oh man, people got hurt. Okay, it happens every single day. People die every single day. Why is it that something big like that is such an effect? Is it because they're gay? Maybe I'm sounding biased here, but it shouldn't matter if they're gay or not. It's human beings regardless. So what about the children that in other countries that are dying of starvation? What's going on in the Middle East? Why all of a sudden because it happened here now, you know, we're making it such a big deal. But yet everybody wants to act like peace on earth, peace on earth. It's hypocritical, and it's sad at the end of the day. It's just for recognition and narcissism at its finest, honestly.
Yeah, and people ignore what's going on in Yemen and all over the Middle East, but the shooting that's here, they all care about. Should we say hi to them? I think it was Paul joined.
What's going on? I just noticed. Hey, Paul, what's going on, brother?
Hey, what's up? I was on mute.
Paul, we did a little introduction. I don't know. It's up to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. If not, we'll just go to the question: what brought you into the whole idea of libertarianism and supporting it?
I was probably libertarian all along, but you know, growing up in the Midwest here, growing up in more kind of a religious family and such, so stuck in that conservative imperialist life for the longest time. And so it's funny, actually, most of my friends probably know me more as that. So this has more been the last 4-year transition to this.
All right, so what do you feel today would be a good discussion? We got so many things: feminism, we got status.
Oh, I'm sitting here fuming because of public education from something happening actually right now. So.
Oh, what's going on with you?
Listen. Oh man. So my son, he goes public education, and of course, you know, the whole school is run by these progressive snowflakes, and so they nitpick every little thing on him, and if he's too hyper or if he says something that they think's threatening, you know, because you know, boys, they like to play, they like to joke around, and so last week he got like a rash on his leg. You know, he was playing outside or something. You know that he's have a doctor's note to be able to go back to school. So I write him back and I said, well, it's just a rash. He had this a couple years ago too. It'll go away. If it starts to get worse, then we'll take him to the doctor. And so nothing's said after that. I figured that settled it, and it actually was starting to get better. Well, then today, they call up my wife and say that you need to come pick him up, and he needs to have a doctor's note to be able to go back to school. And it turns out they were just bait. It was just bait to get her to go up there so that the principal and the counselor and all that could talk to her about his behavior, and that he fidgets all the time, and that this is indications of ADHD, and you need to have a doctor consult him about it. I'm like, what gives you the right to tell me to go put my kid on a narcotic?
Yeah, man, that's what little boys do, man. I mean, I'm a father of 3 boys. Now, you know, every time, you know, granted my kids don't act out too much, but every time they'd start acting up like that or something, I'd be like, well, they're little boys. They're gonna get in trouble a little bit now and then.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't mean they need to be medicated. You know?
It's just,
Yeah, I
go
had
ahead.
a medical issue with the school last year. My oldest son was getting migraines real bad, and we had him in, you know, we got him CAT scans and things like that. Like the doctor, you know, there was legitimate things. He was missing a lot of school. And so there was one day he wanted to come home early, and the secretary wouldn't let him call. And I guess she left at noon. So after noon, he called, and I was working from home that day. And so he called me. I go up there, and I'm asking them what the hell's going on. That, you know, my son's sick, and he wants to come home, and they're not letting him call me. I was like, where do you get the right to do that? Well, he wasn't running a fever, so we told him to go home. Or told him to go back to class and try to tough it out. I said, oh, so are you a doctor? I said, okay, so where do you get to where you can make these calls and all this stuff? And then
man, you were lucky. I was so mad now that I didn't get to go because I was somewhere else. I was like, oh, they're so lucky, because I was like, well, what's the minimum thing it takes for them to have to require a doctor's office? I mean, if he comes with the sniffles, if he has one Band-Aid on, What's the minimum? Are they just being subjective? That's when I realized it had nothing to do with his rash. Otherwise, they would have told him to go home on Monday. It was bait to get us to go in there so they could tell us to go put him on ADHD medicine.
Does he question them a lot?
Huh?
Does he question them a lot? Like if they, if they're wrong about something, does he say something, or does he argue with them at all?
Yeah, he has little talk back issues lately. He's kind of going through that phase. It's fourth grade. He's turned 9. He's got a mouth on him sometimes.
Well, yeah, but is it talking back or just questioning it? Like, well, why do I have to do this? That's the thing. They don't want you to question them. They just want you to do it.
Well, from what I've noticed, it's the whole authority figure where it's you have to listen to me, or it's my way, the highway. It's never. It feels, I don't know. I can't really speak because I don't have a kid myself, and I really don't know how public schools are these days. But like I said, I've been recently seeing somebody who has a kid, and just for the past couple days on seeing how a child acts, it just, I don't know how to really pinpoint it. You can't really, a kid is a kid at the end of the day. You're right. They're growing. They're hyper. They just need to run around a little bit. I think it's just the teachers themselves are just so, overworked on their own problems that, it's hard to really try to discipline somebody else's child without
they're
worry.
not even allowed to discipline much.
Really?
I mean, so like we had a curriculum night a couple weeks ago, and she kind of started listening to some of the things with him, I took away recess for it, but it's going to be next week when he loses out, and I'm like, good. I mean, that's what I'm teaching him. He's got to learn the long-term consequences. She's like, but he won't remember what he did, and I go, oh, that's what we teach him, And we like to fidget, and so we have him want him to sit on a bouncy ball instead of a chair. And I go, no, don't accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what their plan is. They accommodate the child instead of consequences. And so it's no wonder these little Marxist little brats grow up, because they realize they never think there's consequences to anything. Someone will just compensate for them. Oh, well, you can't sit in a chair and behave, so we'll give you a bouncy ball. And so I asked my son straight up, well, did all the kids get a bouncy ball?
Mm-hmm.
And so they put him on this behavior checklist, which was pretty cool. It was actually not too subjective. And I was like, okay. And you have to get, after 85%, he gets a reward, like 10 minutes of play on the computer time,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds cool. But then I'm like, well, did all the kids behave? Did they all get computer time, or just you? Now you get privileges?
It's wow. See, like I said, I can't really speak because I don't have a kid myself, so I really don't know how the public schools. I can only see it from an aspect from my roommate who's a teacher and the stress that he has to go through with students, but he's dealing with students that are close to 8th grade, I believe. So they're at that stage where rebellion is on sort of getting higher. It's really, but then he also is he teaches in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Elizabeth, New Jersey is not really too keen on education. It's more of a city area. The person really has to take it upon themselves to want to get out of there. That whole, let's get out of that lifestyle. I could do bigger and better things. But then the aspect of money comes into play, and it changes their whole mentality, where now they're trying to grind or hustle or trap is what they call it. And it's a vicious cycle that they just end up doing the same thing over and over again. But then who's really to blame? Because you got teachers, you got parents too, and I know parents do their own thing to try and discipline their kids, and a lot of parents are busy as well, especially in the area that I'm at. You got community. It's kind of, I don't know how communities are when it comes to kids, and because I don't see a lot of positive programs around my area. The only thing I really see is like an urban garden, but who's really taking care of the garden? Is it the community coming together? Because I'm pretty sure the guy selling dope across the street really could care less that there's cucumbers for him to eat over there. He's more worried about trying to, make
He's
sure
cultivating different kinds of plants.
Yeah. But this is why I want to travel too, because I would love to see how people live their lives in different areas and compare it to where I come from. It's just, it's hard when money is a key thing to survive in this world. And, anybody else?
So I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for the dads out there, my son's only 9 months old, and I'm starting to think about where I'm sending him to school, and I'm a little worried about sending him to public school because, I've seen my nieces and nephews go up through some public schools, and they come home. They one of my nephews learned a song praising the moon and how the moon is like basically the god of the earth, and like. And also they were really upset because sharks were being used in shark fin soup in Asia, and so he felt really bad for the sharks. But so I'm thinking, is there any way to give your kids a liberty-minded education without doing homeschool? Like, how do you fight against the indoctrination from the communists that usually teach at public schools?
Well, I've always. Oh, Ryan, go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, I guess you could, you would have to like counteract that, like at home, event, like at the dinner table, or just with interactions with. I don't know, I don't have a kid, but that is like a big question. How do you, unless you pay out the money for a private school, or or have the time for homeschooling,
Yeah, the only way I survived public school is by not going. I just never went, so I couldn't get indoctrinated.
Exactly.
So,
skip class.
Well, I'm pretty uncensored at home, so I'm sure he gets some of his little rebellion talk from me.
Yeah.
I've always sat down with the kids and explain to them, whenever they come home telling me about teachers this or that, or the school's doing this. Well, I explain to them, no, my kids know what rights are. They, excuse me. They understand, they understand what it means to violate somebody's rights, and they understand, what to look for. They understand how to peacefully protest and things like that. My oldest son last year, he was in 5th grade, and the music teacher, he had to be in this vocal class. He didn't even want to be in it, but they made him be in it anyway. And then he wasn't singing in the songs. And so she calls me one day saying, well, Alex isn't singing. And I said, well, he doesn't want to. So I'm not going to make him. I said, what do you want me to do? Go over there and move his mouth for him? And she goes, well, I just think he's embarrassed. We have a Christmas concert coming up. And I said, well, he doesn't want to go to that, so he's not going to. Well, I gave him a speaking part thinking that might help. I was like, he doesn't want to sing. He's not going to want to talk. Well, he's going to fail if he doesn't do that. I said, ma'am, I'm not really worried about his 5th grade vocal grade affecting his But we homeschooled this year, and we started looking at it. It really doesn't take near as much time as you think. I mean, my kids, usually by about noon they've got all their work done. My oldest, he's almost 13, so he's getting to where he's sleeping in, and we don't mess with him too much, make him get up about 10 or so. But he'll do his homework at middle of the night or whenever he wants to do it. It's all web based, and homeschooling's a lot easier than we thought. Now, I mean, of course, my wife is a homemaker, so yeah, we do have the time there, but it doesn't take as much effort as I thought. I mean,
that's what I was fuming about, and I was on the phone with my mom before this talking about it. So like, yeah, my wife's a homemaker. She has all the time she could do it, but she gets frustrated. But so I have to sell her on it almost more than more than anybody. But I'm like,
I really thought it was mostly going to be me because my wife was never really academic, and she's taken off on it. Like I'm really impressed with what my wife's done. I'm number4learning.com. I mean, after this, I can send you links and stuff, man. But man, it's all web based. It just like lays it all out for you. And I mean, my wife, she takes control of it. I mean, I go in there and help them when they're confused. But other than that, man, it's easy. I pay $50 a month a subscription for 3 kids, and I mean that's way cheaper than I thought it was. It's way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Hey Adam, real quick, have you noticed too, since you've started homeschooling your kids, have you noticed the bonding experience between you and the kids have grown immensely? Like, do you feel as if like,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, we've always had that. I mean, my kids, I mean, every chance we get, we're learning about something. I mean, I'm a big talker. So, I mean, when it comes to like, hey, there's a storm rolling in, living in Oklahoma, we get tornadoes. And so I'm explaining them how it all works and why we don't have to be worried about a tornado right now or what we have to be worried. I mean, just everything we come across, like how does photosynthesis work? How, all this. I mean, so it's always been a learning experience, like nonstop for my kids.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
My I actually started trying to teach my girl's daughter that taxation is theft, and she's only 4 years old.
Starting
And,
young.
yeah, and I'm just like, I told her this morning, I said, I want you to remember that nobody rules you and no one tells you to do what you really don't want to do. You got to listen to mommy because mommy's the parent, but anybody outside, don't let anybody influence you to do bad. If you feel that's bad, you do it. And remember, taxation is theft.
Man, watch Robin Hood with her.
Huh?
Oh yeah, I already got him on that this summer. Just I had to mow the grass and then took tax out of it. And I've got it on video. I'll have to post it to the group some night.
Oh, man.
If I can find where I put it of him declaring the taxation stuff. That was pretty funny.
Okay, so let's see. We had mentioned in the group that I wanted to bring up too was dealing with friends and maybe family members or people that who, when it comes to believing different politics, Republicans, Democrats, how do you, I guess, you handle if you have any funny stories or anything like that on when it comes to debating somebody on issues and views and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty funny, reading the different comments of like dealing with the drunk uncles, the semi-racist drunk uncles and whatnot. Anybody has anything?
I mean, one thing I always try to remember whenever talking about that stuff with friends and family is, I mean, really, we all want the same end game, So, I mean, we all want everybody to be happy and healthy and taken care of. It's just a matter of how we want to get there. And I mean, and really a lot of it, I mean, we all have a lot more in common as Americans than we think. I mean, it's just some people have the cognitive dissonance and, they're indoctrinated, with all that stuff. And it's just a matter of, getting around that. But we all want freedom. It's just a matter of understanding what that means.
Yeah, that's true. So, like, people look at freedom through like certain lenses. Like they don't understand. Like, and most of them are through the lens of the state. Like, how can the state give us more freedom? And that's where the big I guess conflict is between. Like you're saying, like we're all Americans. We all want freedom, but what really is freedom? Do we really understand what is freedom and like where it comes from? It's not the state.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. A state cannot give freedom. That is impossible. And I mean, that's kind of what, once I realized that is what kind of pushed me over the edge beyond just a minarchist all the way to just, no government at all. Because, I mean, there's no way government cannot violate people's rights. It does not.
Here's the thing, though, is a lot of people that do believe in a state, that's fine. If you believe that a state compared to federal government, it might be a little bit better. But the thing I've noticed, too, is it's either people are too busy or too lazy to really focus on who are these local officials or politicians that do run for these state offices, and that transparency or that responsibility of making sure that person does what they say they're going to do and paying attention to local politics. A lot of people in my opinion, get too reliant on that state government and don't pay attention to what's really going on, where money is being managed, where money is being handed to. And then with that, they start thinking that, well, okay, big government coming in, they're going to help force state government to do what they want to do. That's not the case. You could look at prime example, medical marijuana use. Federal government is still going to come in and charge you for selling, but people are still doing it regardless. So I don't know. I think state government doesn't work as well unless people start taking more responsibility in who they put into office. Because one of the stupidest movies, though, but I found great to watch was The Campaign with Will Ferrell. Have you guys seen that?
Oh yeah.
And the idea of, in the beginning, he had no one running against him, so he automatically got elected by just waiting and just signing a paper. You know, it's things like that it affects those local towns, because now they're handling the money. Where is it really going to? Look at the people like Rob Ford in Canada. You know, the guy was so fucked up on drugs, you know, but who was really allowing him to do that? No one was really taking responsibility on him as an official. They were just letting him fail and do whatever he wants. You know, it's just whoever we allow in power when it comes to local government, that's really going to affect who we allow in office when it comes to federal, I think, because if we don't pay attention to local, we're just allowing this to even happen worse and worse. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I would say education is really important in the political sphere, just because isn't it the statistic is like 60% of Americans can't even name the vice president. So like if they can't name the vice president, they're not going to know what's going on in their local elections. And so this is why things get so screwed up, because only a few people have to vote a certain way for something to happen.
Do you think people are so apathetic because they just don't think it's going to matter anyway? Or
so one of my jobs I was at, it was a couple years ago. It was in Utah, and they're all, you know, Utah is red state through and through, and they're like, you know, they all want to live free and stuff, or so they act like. But anyway, I would talk to my coworkers who would agree with me on most of my political stances. But then I was like, when Obama came out and said we need to declare war on ISIS, or we need to go into Syria to fight ISIS, it was on the anniversary to the date of a year before, where he said we need to go fight in Syria against Assad on the same side as ISIS. It was 1 year apart exactly. He gave a speech to Congress saying one time we need to fight one side of the war, and then the next year we need to fight the other side of the war. And I was talking to my coworkers, and I'm like, does this not seem crazy? Like, have you guys read 1984? Like, they're just switching enemies randomly. It makes no sense. Yeah. And the guy I was talking to, he goes, oh, I just don't pay attention to that. And like, that's his answer. Like, not that, oh, that's outrageous or that's crazy or whatever. Just like, I can't even be bothered to think about that.
It's hard to think about it. That's why. You know, it's just too easy to tune out and tune into something else. Way too easy.
Well, you know, the U.S. government was set up so you wouldn't have to think about it. Originally, you know, I mean, that's why we elect representatives that represent us at the local level. You know, we have delegates that elect the president. You know, we have the representatives that, and then we have, you know, the Senate was originally elected by the states. You know, it was all, we weren't supposed to have to worry about that. You know, but whenever we direct democracy on so many of these things, or practically direct democracy, I mean, then it matters. Then people do have to pay attention. But we've gotten away from what the original idea was.
I guess they originally intended these representatives to be people from the community, and you know, these, you know, most people that most politicians represent certain constituents, which you know, they live nowhere near where they live at. They don't live like there's no politicians living in the ghetto. You know, there's no politicians living in like, you know, just rundown meth fucking trailer park ridden. You know, it's you know, there's no commonality between the people and their representatives.
Well, those people can't even vote though. You know, the war on drugs keeps happening because if you're a victim of the war on drugs, you don't get the right to vote anymore.
Yeah,
you can't even vote to change it.
I've got another story of talking to a coworker. So at my last job I was at, there was a guy there. He was one of the only gay guys at our work, because I was in Utah, and not a lot of gays up there. But
openly.
Yeah, and yeah, at least that. But so he was definitely open and all about it, and he was basically just straight up SJW material, like to the point that at one point someone logged onto someone else's computer and sent out a joke email saying so it was this guy who was new at the company, and some girl logged onto his computer and sent out an email to everyone in the company saying he's looking for a date for a company party, and he's looking for like a hot girl. And so it was just supposed to be a funny joke. But then this SJW guy replies and says, that's offensive and domineering to women, and you shouldn't send jokes to people because it might offend them. And so everyone freaked out and was like, this guy's going to get us in trouble for sexual harassment or something. But anyway, I actually ended up sitting next to him, and so I started telling him taxation is theft, and I just went with it anyway. And I even talked to him why guns should be legal and in all circumstances. And so I feel like he at least heard me out and didn't like freak out on me or anything. So I think you can always share sort of the good word, as it were, to anyone really, just as long as you frame it in a friendly way.
Well, that's why someone had posted that milk gallon, that little picture where it was the breakdown of minimum wage. And I had made that comment that in order to really try and reach out to people and I guess educate them, you have to talk their language, I guess you could say. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes having to relate to what they're into, and that takes a lot of effort to try and take what they're into and try and break it down into the aspect. But it's sometimes dumbing yourself down to talk to them helps, but unfortunately it seems like it's not doing enough. I don't know what, but then again, it's live and let live aspect. You could put the information out there, but how can you get a person to really consider that? Especially like my parents, they know that government doesn't really look out for you, but yet they still are holding on to the fact that they think Hillary Clinton is going to be a great president. And all my dad's excuse for it is because back when the early 90s, when Clinton was in office, he couldn't walk down the street without somebody asking him if he knows anybody that's looking for a job. And he thinks just because of that, if we get Clintons back into office, it's going to be great again. But then I gave him, I don't know how accurate that documentary Clinton Cash is. I don't know if you guys seen that documentary based on the book, where it basically entails how the Clinton family was able to gain so much money after Bill left office. Because apparently right when Bill was leaving office, they were in debt themselves as a family. So through him doing his speeches and whatever Hillary did to influence other countries when it came to, I forgot what country it was, where she was able to allow somebody to cut down a bunch of trees next to a shoreline in order for her to gain financial benefit out of it. And just even presenting that to him, for him to see it, and it has music, dramatic music, the way it's edited is perfect for him because he loves action movies. I know I can't even get him to sit down and watch it and really think for himself because he's so set on the fact. And even if he does watch it, I know he's gonna be like, well, that's our best option because I just don't want Trump in office. He doesn't want that whole thought in office. So it's hard. I don't know how one could really try and get somebody to really think for themselves in that part. Putting out the education is so much. It's really up to the person.
Well, yeah, and some people don't want to hear at all. Like they don't want to be educated.
Well, or they see another option, because what you're really getting to there is the lesser of two evils argument, and what people just kind of ignore though is, we continue to vote lesser of two evils, and yet even the lesser keeps getting even more evil. You keep voting for scumbags, and the next go around, they're like, well, they voted for that last scumbag. Let's push a little bit further. and put on further, they're only going to get worse. I mean, the majority of Americans don't vote. I mean, a lot of people don't even pay attention. So, I mean, really, eventually it's going to just have to get to where nobody participates.
And then we just basically bow down, right?
No.
Or just come or be enslaved even more. I don't know how. It's hard to really think of how it's going to be because it's going to suck either way.
Well, those people only have power because we think they have power. That's the only reason. Their money's only worth money because we think it is. The laws only have jurisdiction because we think they do. I mean, eventually, as long as you get enough people that say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not participating anymore.
The president is only a PR. Like, that's all it is. I don't know why people think it's gonna make this significant change. They could just basically veto bills. Like, that's really supposed to be their only position, and then they go and they speak for us. I mean, people think that it's gonna be some white knight to come through. They're fucking retarded. Like, I don't know what world they're living in.
What's going on, Chris? How you doing, by the way?
They're just like a prime minister, basically. They're just there for show. They're not really pulling any strings other than vetoing. Now they could veto bills or whatever. I'm not too sure what else they could do.
Well, you run into the danger because they have all these agencies under the executive branch. I mean, all your DEA, your IRS, your FBI, that's all under executive branch.
Right.
And then agencies are writing their own regulations, and they're legislating laws from the executive branch, and that shouldn't be happening.
Oh, yeah, and I forgot. That's the other thing. They could write executive orders. They
Well,
could
yeah.
veto bills and write executive orders. It's like, it shouldn't even be going that far to begin with.
Well, and Congress has basically left their duty of a lot of their duties to the point where the presidency now can control the power of war, such as we haven't had a declaration of war since World War II, and we haven't had an authorization for use of military force since 2003, but still we're at war constantly, and that's coming from the executive
Oh, I
branch.
wonder why. I can't figure out why we're in war. It's just such a mystery. I can't figure it out.
Well,
Oh my God.
Even when you present the idea of the money being spent when it comes to arms dealing and it comes to the manufacturing of warheads and weapons, people still don't take it into consideration that we're selling our own weapons to our so-called enemies. And then
President Johnson warned us about it. President Johnson straight up told us about the military-industrial complex. People still ignore it.
I know, but it's. And then when I don't know. I'm not a gun person, but I do believe in the power of protection and protecting yourself. But when it comes to who the fuck really needs a bazooka or something as big? I guess for an avid gun collector, it'd be cool to have, but it's just going to sit there and collect dust. Are you really going to go out to the fields and try and blow up a cow or something like that?
Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, man. Who cares?
Do people want to do that shit? What the fuck's a cow gonna do? Become an engineer? Just fucking blow it up. Who cares?
I want a bazooka, man.
Nobody fucking
Whatever.
cares. As long as it's not a human, who fucking cares?
I'm
They're like a
surprised-
house pet.
I'm
Take my
surprised.
bazooka on a walk.
Well, I'm surprised that so-called terrorists or ISIS haven't been using cows or anything to bring them, or a dog or something. I remember.
Nah, the cow's holy. Oh no, never mind. That's Hindus. No, okay.
What is it? Monty Python, Search of the Holy Grail, the big wooden horse when they try getting into the castle.
Wooden badger.
Yeah, the wooden. I was surprised they if real people really wanted to hurt us on our own land, it would have happened the day after or the day before September 11th. People fail to realize that if we're really in danger of people, shit would be happening. What's been supposedly happening in New Jersey right now with these little pipe bombs, and then
Well, yeah, and currently, last week, it happened where the U.S.-backed Kurds were fighting the U.S.-backed rebels in Syria. So we're just fighting ourselves.
Didn't we-
before ISIS was a thing, we were backing the Syrian rebels who were fighting the Iraqis, and then so we're just in one country we arm them, and then in another we fight them. So it makes no sense. And actually,
No,
right
no,
now,
it makes sense. They're creating civil war on purpose too within those countries. It makes sense because when there's division, there's no unification. They're not gonna have people stand up against wherever the fuck we're at. I mean,
Well,
Just blow them away. Good
It's
So
luck.
also a warfare state. you
let's
know?
look at when Egypt had its uprising and it was able to overthrow the government. Do you think that really did any good? Do you think
Yeah, they've really improved. I thought it looked really good afterwards. Their government, everything got better. All their problems were solved. It was a good
don't know.
idea.
Yeah, the Arab Spring was just a continuation of sort of the neocon philosophy that democracy would save the Middle East, but all that's happened with democracy in the
No,
Middle
it
East is
doesn't
they
fit
vote
their
in Muslims that
don't
try
want
to
that.
kill out all the minorities, take away all protections for freedom of speech and travel and all that stuff, and so all the minorities in these countries are getting massacred. You know, Coptic Christians in the Middle East are being decimated and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's and on top of it, that they're put in these these countries, where they shouldn't be put together in the first place. You put it, that is all imaginary lines that were drawn, putting warring factions together. Trying to tell them like live peacefully.
Well, yeah, and that comes from back to the UN and things like that, which I'm for getting out of the UN, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on them. The big bullies.
That's the epitome of the state. It's like the global state. Yeah, it's what they're striving
UN
to be.
peacekeeping soldiers raping children in Africa, and
Yeah.
people are like, "Yeah, the UN's a great thing."
All right.
Yeah.
So much peace since the UN has been around.
No, it's been great since actually it was the League of Nations. It was probably one of the best organizations out there. They helped a lot of people, made big changes in the world, and thank God they got the Holy Land for those people that were suffering so much. Not that anybody else was suffering, but it's the only thing that they've done.
So would you consider then the whole cops versus this whole Black Lives, All Lives Matter? Then in a
Oh
sense,
my God.
they're in a civil war, or they're trying to build one to the point of what happened last night in North Carolina, where I was even reading that a female truck driver was stuck in her truck.
Yeah.
They're
stealing shit out of the back and burning it.
like, is really making a difference. You're really doing something. Well,
it's all funded by, we all hear this, story. It's all funded by George Soros and this, that, or the other. But, there is money involved. These people, I'm not saying every single protest is, conspiracy and this, that, or the other. But, there's a lot of unrest is being organized.
So a big part of it actually is the UN is trying to get in on doing sort of a federal-based police force. So the whole thing, like, I'm totally against police abusing their power, like just as much as everyone on our group, but I think it is important to keep police as local as possible.
Yeah.
Just because that keeps them accountable to the communities. But what happens with Ferguson or things like that is the police screw up, so then the DOJ gets to come in and say, no, you have to run things this way or that way. So now the DOJ is running local police forces, and it totally ruins things. So I'm for making fun of cops for overusing their powers, but I think we should support our local police just to make sure that it stays local.
Well, it's kind of hard to support the local police. Look at Camden, New Jersey is being run. I don't know how it's being ran now, but I remember hearing it was being ran by state troopers. Now you got Newark, New Jersey, that has the effort of state cops trying to, patrol the streets versus Newark cops who really don't seem to be doing anything worthwhile. And then you had a case in Irvington, I remember a few years back, that they ended up having to remove their whole the dogs they got rid of, the drug sniffing dogs and whatnot, because it bit one person, and because of one person getting bit, they decided they're not going to fund it anymore. So now it made it even harder for them to try and fight this so-called war on drugs. But I don't know.
Well, that dog was definitely racist. I'll tell you that. If it was in Newark, that dog, somebody was training him wrong. They should be sued for that racist dog.
I was thinking, part of supporting your local police would probably be educating police as well to what their constitutional limits are, what their legal limits are. Like, realize, because I think a lot of police do think they're above the law and things don't apply to them.
Well, what about the police that do see that the power or the evil within their own organization, and they try and speak up on it, And then now you got the whole cops with the whole brotherhood aspect that if you decide to snitch on one cop and you're a cop, you're looked down and they're going to treat you like you're a piece of shit. You know, there's that whole brotherhood aspect of that.
Or that they don't have a right to protect or serve you. People forget that there's literally no purpose for them as now, because I think it was like Warren versus District of Columbia or some shit, where the police didn't have to defend anyone, even though they were allowed to come in the house and help this like person that was supposed to be a victim of some kind of crime. They called themselves, like nobody helped, and they got off on that. And there's been another case where I think they watched like somebody get jumped at a subway, 2 cops, and nobody had to intervene, and they don't have to. That's not their purpose. They're not there to like say, they're there to administer tickets. Like as of now, not all cops do it, but they could just keep getting by just doing that. Just giving out tickets, not really helping anybody.
Well, what they're supposed to do is protect and maintain our rights. I mean,
I know, but Supreme Court already ruled that they don't have to. So
well, yeah, I know. I mean,
it's not the cops' fault. I mean, we're looking at this is like a law thing. It's not like the cops are sitting there creating the law. It just happened to have been an isolated situation.
Well, they do have.
I think they just have too much job security. That's probably the biggest issue.
What was that, Randall? One more time.
I think they just have too much job security. That's the biggest issue. If you just privatize them, have like a bunch of small private security companies competing against each other are a lot easier to get rid of if shitty.
Well, even private security companies. Well, here's an example too. When my dad used to live here in Jersey with my mom, he was doing armed security in Jersey City. Now, what he was doing was patrolling an apartment building / corner that was known for drug activity. I'm happy he's still alive today because he had an incident where a young lady and 2 men jumped him, and he did not fight back due to the fact that all he did was hold on to his gun to make sure that they didn't get it, because if they would have gotten his gun, it was over. It was over. So I'm asking him, well, why weren't the cops patrolling there? What are they doing in Jersey City then? And I don't know. It's just money. The private companies are making more money for armed security, and they're putting people like him that really don't have the sort of backbone that the police department has, and they're putting people like him who he's just a security guard with a gun, putting him at like as if he's an officer of the law. And then when he tried to get his route change or wherever the location was to a different location, nobody would take it, that he was forced to stay right there until he had moved. And then there was that incidence of the cop killings. And I don't know if, Chris, you remember that? The Jersey City cop getting killed. There were a bunch of people. That one guy at a CVS shot a cop for no reason because he just wanted to become a cop killer.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed, though, it seems as if it's always patterns. It's going to happen one time. It's going to happen again for like a week or two, and then it's going to quiet down, and then something big is going to happen, and it's going to happen repeatedly, and it's going to quiet down, and then there's another pattern of things. Because
there has to be a constant state of fear, of course, yeah. Because
I remember years back there was a pattern of dads committing suicide and killing their whole family because of something that was up with their job. They were stressed, so they decided, you know what, I'm going to take out my family and I'm going to take out myself. And I remember that being a pattern at one point. Like every week there was something happening along with.
Oh yeah, like the that was like decades ago, but in Scotch Plains they had the guy who moved to Pennsylvania. He killed his family. He didn't have a legitimate reason. He just couldn't stand them. He like killed his family, and then he went to Pennsylvania or something, got remarried, and then I guess he was about to do the same thing, and they caught him. Or he did do the same thing. I forgot the story. I know that I had the book. It's like Thou Shalt Not Kill. But it was like around that time of the spree of dads just killing like their families for no reason. They're just I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I've noticed there's always a pattern, and then it quiets down, and everybody's fine again, and then another thing happens, and then we all get riled up, and then we get quiet again.
Like with Ebola and then Zika and all that.
Yeah, isn't that great that it happened during what was it? It was like a diamond mining strike or something like that. Like I remember that, or how like there was like poisoning in the wells from where the Ebola breakout happened. Somebody like poisoned the wells.
there's just so many things that happen in this that goes on in this world too. It's so hard to really, and it's overwhelming to really take in everything and run with it.
Brangelina broke up recently.
Oh my god.
Oh no! Oh my god!
I've
That's
been listening.
devastating.
I've been listening to Papa Roach all day because of it. All right.
Wow.
Mind me.
No, you know, all these different stories you hear, like, it sounds like there's common occurrences for a little bit and they stop. These things don't ever stop. They're still happening. I mean, it's just a matter of when they're reporting and how big of a deal they are, you know? I mean, yeah, there might be some trends to it, but for the most part, it's just news reporting on whatever whatever you know, they're going to get you to watch it for, get the ratings up, you know?
So that makes me think of something. So currently our news sucks, but there's the idea in American journalism that you have to be non-biased and no one should know what you're going to vote for instance, and you have to keep all that quiet. When we all know that at least 90% of journalists are registered Democrats. Like, so
They're not
there's
even
this ideal-
biased. I mean, they're not even unbiased. They just straight out say their opinion. They don't even hide it.
Well, right, but there's this idea that everyone should be unbiased when some like right-wing journalists and things like that, like Andrew Breitbart used to say, we should just be honest with our biases. You know, if you're right-wing, say you're right-wing. If you're left-wing, say you're left-wing. You know, don't try to pretend that you don't have a bias. The other thing is all state journalism sort of is inherently state biased. So even if we had people who are honest with their biases, they'd still be pro-state, taxation and all that stuff. But I guess where I'm going with this is you know, how do we navigate the news cycle, and how do you share not necessarily unbiased, but at least honest news with people? Like, how do you get them to look outside the sort of echo chamber that is journalism today?
You know, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you know, everybody's gonna have confirmation bias. You can't get around it. We all have it. I can acknowledge that I have it as well.
It feels too good.
That's just, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, you know, we're always gonna find information that backs up our story, and it's just a matter of how we perceive it.
Is shifting through all this shit on the internet to find out what's the truth and what's not. And what's making it harder too is shit like clickbait websites.
Like the South Park episode.
Exactly.
Everything's an ad.
Everything is an ad, no matter how much you try and filter it out.
I don't know, man. I think it's making it easier to not look at those, because it's like every single like 3 sentences you have to click to get to the next page, and then have like a screen full of fucking ads and shit. It's like, what the fuck is it?
And it just like,
how brilliant you have to be.
Just like my girl right now, she just recently, through me, she found out that websites will like CNN.com, their private policy now, they changed it this year, is as soon as you click on the website, you don't have to click to agree to anything. When you go on their website, you are giving them access to your cookies and your history and your browser history, and they're able to take that without any sort of way for you to click to agree on that, and they could sell it to their partners. I don't know if they're owned by Viacom or something like that, but whoever they work with alongside gets all our information just by clicking an article, you know?
Yeah, just get no script.
You
No
see
script.
it when you open up their page, all the stuff that runs at the bottom. Like, I just opened up Cena now. It's still not even done. Waiting for ads.sticky, waiting for Beacon, all that stuff. It takes longer for that to load than the actual page.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know.
Yeah, just get no script.
Facebook, and then it recommends something that you looked at another page.
Well, how do you guys feel?
Well,
How do you guys feel then? What's going to happen October 1st now with the government handing over the internet to a private company based out in California that also filters through China's servers? And what they're going to do is going to be intercepting everybody's IP address. And I'm pretty sure they're going to develop a sort of program or algorithm or something where it's going to pick up certain words. And if you say one little thing, you're going to be pinpointed into a category, just like, I guess, a no-fly list, but no visiting this website list. I'm probably thinking ahead of myself, but for me, it seems like it's going to be possible that it's going to get to the point where, because of one little thing you say, you're going to be forbidden to even enter one website because of one little thing. Like, you're banned forever. The ban gods are gonna treat you like shit.
I mean, that was more likely to happen under government control anyway.
Yeah.
But
We
wouldn't
were
it
already
have
heading
happened
towards
by
that
then?
direction.
Well,
I would think it would have happened by then. I know
Yeah.
technology is
Well,
still.
so some of this is an example of the media sort of backing up the state, in the sense that everyone was against sort of the pay-to-play model for ISPs, meaning, if you have Time Warner digital cable in your house, they were charging Netflix extra money to stream at higher speeds. And basically, John Oliver and a few other people came out and said, hey, we all need to get the FCC to regulate the internet to stop them from changing the speeds of the internet based on what the company is, which I'm all for companies, sort of having the internet be a free space and not throttling for various websites or pay to play, for instance. But why is it that the FCC has to fix it? Why is it that government is the solution? So the journalism sort of co-opted this good thing of let's have the internet be free, but they co-opted that story and said let's have it by free by putting it in charge, by putting the FCC in charge of it. And it made no sense, and all my friends were so happy that the internet was going to be free now because the government was in charge.
Well, look at T-Mobile. I remember T-Mobile has the option of, let's say you want to go on Netflix or YouTube, it's actually going to now it's going to lessen down your megabytes by actually producing a lower quality of video footage. And of course, they didn't like that. I remember. Hold on, let me see if I can find something on it. Speak amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
I mean, it's conflicting for me because obviously it's going to suck for us. But if I own the ISP, if I wanted to charge a usury fee to the high bandwidth providers, I should be allowed to. So it's like,
well, and in a free market, no one would use those ISPs, but telecom is not a free market at all. And, really, if there was no regulation, people would say, I'm not going to buy Time Warner if they're going to throttle my speeds. I'm going to go for an ISP that keeps the internet free. But instead, now it's been classified as a utility by the federal government, and so now the federal government's in charge of the internet, which is not at all how it should have been.
The problem with that is it's extremely expensive to dig new cables and things like that. If you just deregulate it, I don't think that's going to be enough to have a bunch of competition. That's almost a thing where I'd almost be okay with it being an actual utility and the actual physical lines being government.
I've got
Minus one libertarian points there.
I know that, but I'll take that hit. I don't care. I can't think of a better solution.
Well, what about Google then? You got the likes of Google trying to implement their own service.
They're not, though. That's the thing. They're using dark fiber that's been sitting there for years unused. They're not building any new cables.
Oh, really?
I had Google Fiber up in Provo, Utah, and it was pretty great. But I talked to a guy who was part of sort of the legislative process there, and yeah, basically he had fiber internet faster than the speeds Google's offering for like 15 years because they had laid the cable right by his house, and he just paid the construction workers. He bought them lunch and said, run a cable to my house. So he was tapped straight into the national fiber optic line and had free internet for 15 years. And then Google came in and he had to pay.
Wow. That sounds like when we used to get the hot box or whatever you want to call it with all the cable channels without having to pay. It had special boxes you hooked up to your cable line. You were able to access everything until government came in and says, no, can't do that.
I mean,
I don't think it can be classified as a utility I've got 3 different choices at least for ISP here. I mean, I could do cable internet. I'm using AT&T's Uverse. If I really wanted to go satellite, I guess I could. And yeah, someday they're going to have Google Fiber here. I don't know what's keeping them from getting this market, but.
Well, and part of it is fiber optic is old technology, but we've been dealing with legislation that's been keeping coaxial cable companies in charge of internet. Like, why is it that old school coaxial cable is delivering internet to people? Like, it makes no sense. We've had this technology for years, and it already comes from a fiber optic cable, but we're downgrading it to satisfy the needs of the lobbyists of the cable company.
That's what Verizon Fios does. The fiber optics converts into a coaxial sort of standard of way of viewing. So yeah, you're really getting the fiber optics coming to the house, but it still has to be converted into being able to be usable in your home. And I never got that aspect. I always thought if it's fiber optics, it might as well just go straight into the computer itself.
Well, the minute it goes to coaxial, it's useless. It's no longer fiber optic. So, I mean,
So we're paying for what then? That's what I don't get when it comes to that sort of aspect. What are we really paying for?
I mean, you need to talk to your ISP. I don't know what you're paying for.
Well, I'm lucky enough that the guy who owns the house is taking care of it. So he's all about about making sure that he could watch the Yankees game. So I'm just going along for the ride.
Well, I mean, you could run fiber in your house. I mean, but yeah, if you don't have fiber all the way up to your modem, I mean, it's kind of useless.
It really is. You're right. So anything else anybody wants to cover or talk about? Speak.
Well, I could go back to a minute ago. You were talking about how they were wanting to sell control of the internet to some Chinese company or whatever. And I know you brought up how you were kind of concerned of.
Well, I think it's a company based out in California that they also monitor any traffic through China and I believe Sweden. I could be wrong.
Well, so the thing is though, and I mean, and earlier we were talking about the Arab Spring in Egypt and all that. Their government blocked the internet. Yet Anonymous actually helped them. That was one of the big changing moments for Anonymous, where they helped the Egyptian people get around the government's blocks and still had access to their Twitter and access to the internet and everything.
Yeah, I think through radio frequencies.
Yeah, there's always going to be a way. They'll never be able to stop us. I mean, there's too many. The smarter people don't work in government. The smarter people get paid. So they'll never be able to. They'll never be able to block us completely. I mean, they can try, and they can make it hard on us, but
it's too hard if it's peer to peer.
Yeah.
I think next week we should talk about torrenting and why it is ethical.
That sounds good. Keep that in mind. Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. I don't know.
Well, I know, like the likes of Pirates Bay.
I can speak a lot about.
Well, I'm sorry.
I said that's definitely a topic I can speak a lot about.
Yeah, because I remember watching a documentary about how websites like the Pirate Bay can exist through the fact that they're using servers from other countries. There was one point that they actually had the servers in an underground bunker, and I remember seeing the video footage of the Swedish police coming in to try with a warrant to try and get in, and they weren't allowed to, and that's how they were still able to exist. But then again, Pirate Bay got shut down again. I started, when it comes to torrents now, I'm so apprehensive on using them because it would take time for me to really look through everything to make sure that I'm not getting any sort of tracking or any sort of virus or anything like that. But we could definitely talk about that tomorrow or next week. That sounds like a good one.
So rest in peace, Harambe.
Rest in peace, Harambe.
Peace be with them.
I don't know, everybody.
And also with you.
And also with you, everybody. It's about to be 10 o'clock now. So we did about an hour and a half, I would say. Other than that, I don't know. Anybody want to talk about anything else? What time you want to meet up next week? Anything to cover?
I'll figure something out.
I mean, I know I have a few things that Google Doc. I don't know if we're still using that. I mean, I was just throwing.
Wait, what would you say? Adam, speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I said I added a few things that Google Doc last week. But,
Yeah, I forgot about the Google Doc. All right, I'm gonna look into that one later tonight, and I'm gonna make sure to bring that up for the next discussion. This is still new to me, so a lot of different things. Like I'm still trying to figure out how we want to go about this and find out what works for us. You guys could put in your input too. If you want a link to the Google Docs or you want to be able to have access to it, just email me at dadjokesmomtokes@gmail.com, and I'll put your email onto there, and you'll get the invite, and you'll be able to access it, add whatever you want onto there, and leave stupid notes. No dick pictures, please. That's all I ask. No dick pictures. That's it.
all right, I guess see you next week or see you in the group.
All right, guys, take care of yourself. I'll see you in the group.
Yeah,
All
have
right.
a good night. I'll see you guys next week.
All right, be
See ya.
safe, fam.